that's about all the cheering you heard yesterday at MetLife Stadium as the Jets take it on the chin to the Philadelphia Eagles 24-17. 24-0 at halftime, Ian. You were covering the game for ESPN 104.5 Albany. What was the groans? Just explain the feeling going on in the press box at the time. I'm sure a lot of the press members had a lot of groans like, oh, here we go again, same old Jets kind of thing, because that was a feeling in the stands.
Definitely. You saw it at the press box. I think epitomized by the Brandon Marshall turnover when he made a complete catch, got a first down for it, 15 yards, and then decided to lateral it to a teammate. And then his lateral bounced off of the helmet of an Eagle, and the Eagles wound up with it 7 plays later, marched down for a touchdown, and that was the difference in the game. 7 points right there, and the Eagles win by 7. It didn't seem like it at the time because the Eagles had such a big lead, but then when the Jets chipped away, that 7 points came back to haunt them.
The biggest thing disturbing for me, and I kind of touched on it last week, was the offensive line moving the defense off the line of scrimmage. The Jets couldn't get anything going on the ground yesterday. Chris Ivory, a late game scratch for this game. He kind of thought he was going to play. He felt he could play, but Todd Bowles said, you know what, we're going to sit you out here. The Jets couldn't get any movement whatsoever pushing the Eagles off the front line.
The Jets' offensive line was, I think, one of the biggest drawbacks and biggest reasons for the loss yesterday. Todd Bowles said it after the game that, when looking at Fitzpatrick's 3 interceptions, it's not so much that he made some bad throws. It was that with the Eagles' defensive pressure and the Jets' lack of keeping them off the line of scrimmage, he was forced, got hit several times. The ball was batted on some of those interceptions. So just a combination of all of that. You can't point to Ryan Fitzpatrick only as the reason for those interceptions.
And Fitzpatrick, 35 of 58, 3 INTs. First off, this guy throwing the ball 58 times. I guess they had to because they couldn't move the ball on offense. Also, the Jets could be without Willie Colon. Brian Winters was a disaster yesterday, filling in for him. So the injuries are mounting for the Jets. And if they lose Colon for any length of time, this could be a big problem for that O-line.
Well, you see the injuries piling up. Talking about Cologne, you mentioned Chris Ivory not playing yesterday. Eric Decker also not playing yesterday. And the fact that Fitzpatrick threw 58 times and they rushed it 16 times, and this is a running team, they need a balanced attack. When you look at their first 2 wins of the season, it was pretty balanced passing versus throwing. Not at all yesterday. And yes, they had to pass the ball. They were down 24-0, but still, you need to establish some kind of running game in order to get the passing game going.
And I think for the first time all year, the Jets really missed Sheldon Richardson, as Ryan Matthews had 25 carries for over 108 yards, and being there, they really moved up and down at will against the Jets, or at least in the first half they did. The Jets' defense was relatively a non-factor, and it really put the pressure on Fitzpatrick and the offense to come up big. But you don't have Chris Ivory, you don't have Cologne, you don't have Eric Decker, who's really been the go-to guy for Fitzpatrick. This was a disaster of a game for the Jets.
And when you look at what the Jets were trying to do defensively, I mean, the Eagles ran on them. You mentioned Ryan Matthews having a big game, but then you also have to look at Darren Sproles and his 89-yard punt return. But not just that, the dynamic of Matthews and Sproles on offense for the Eagles was just simply too much for the Jets.
Not good news. The Jets a chance to go 3-0 before they head to Miami to take on the Dolphins in London. I'm sure Todd Bowles isn't going to enjoy the crumpets and tea there. But this is one that they got away, and the Eagles maybe saved their season. But there is area of concern for the Jets right now, especially if Ivory's out, Eric Decker's out. And one thing, though, is clear, and you were there for the press conference with Todd Bowles, Fitzpatrick is the quarterback.
There is no doubt. Someone asked him, Geno Smith was available to play yesterday. He suited up and everything. But Todd Bowles said with a big smile on his face, Ryan is our quarterback. No doubt about it. He's sticking with Fitzpatrick, which I think is a good move. Mike, I want to get your take on that. Fitzpatrick or Geno Smith?
Without a doubt, I've seen enough of Geno Smith to know that he can't be an NFL quarterback. I stick with Fitzpatrick, but you're going to have to know the limitations that he is not going to win games for you. He can't throw the ball downfield. There are a lot of limitations for Fitzpatrick and this organization. No matter how much talent you have at defensive back or anywhere else, you've got to go get a quarterback. This is, it's kind of like smelling the fire before you see the fire. This organization has to get together, and they really need to make a trade for a quarterback. Maybe you make a blockbuster deal with the Saints because their season's going to be pretty much done trying to get Drew Brees if he could be healthy, or you're going to have to look to the draft to get a quarterback because your options right now are not good. It is not good. The fans cannot stomach poor play like they saw on Sunday. It was just awful.
But then if you talk about looking at the draft, they did that with Geno Smith, and look at how that's turned out. So I think
I don't think there were that many people that were high on Geno Smith, to be honest with you. They saw his limitations and his leadership skills suck, basically. We saw that being late for meetings and lack of organization. It might be different with the new coach, an overall better team. But what I saw from Fitzpatrick yesterday alarmed me that if you don't have Ivory running the ball and he doesn't have Decker, it wasn't good. Let me just put it that way. And this team needs to either A, make a deal for a quarterback, or B, they really got to find something in the draft.
The amount of times that they punted the ball, and really on both sides, which is why the Jets were able to get back into the game, even though they didn't have a great offensive attack
that was the amazing
all.
thing. Well, we could thank Chip Kelly because he only takes 6 seconds off the clock on offense. I mean, his 3 and outs are literally 59 seconds.
That's true. So the Jets were able to capitalize on the speed of the Eagles, but the number of possessions that they had in order to do it, the chances that they had, the game was there for them, and they just simply couldn't get it done.
No, they just didn't have the players to get it done. And a disaster at the Meadowlands at MetLife Stadium. 24-17, the Jets blow a golden opportunity to be 3-0. Now they are 2-1, and the Patriots just keep, like they've been doing for almost 20 years, just keep motoring along. And the division's going to be there for years, as long as Tom Brady is the quarterback, and really what the Jets are playing for every year. And this is what other teams don't have to deal with. The Jets are playing for a wild card spot every year. There's no way they can win the division. It's not like the Giants or the NFC's a mess. Since 2001, the Jets have been playing for a wild card spot at best, and that's it.
And that's just the landscape. That's the draw that they got,
Yeah.
and
before that, it was Dan Marino and Peyton Manning when they were in the AFCs. So I've been watching this since 1983. This is a draw I've been dealt with as a Jet fan. I go from Dan Marino to Peyton Manning to Tom Brady. Yeah, who's next?
Wow, that's thus is the life of a
Yes,
Jets
it is.
fan.
I know. I'm Mike DeMurgis. He's Ian Sachs for Jets Nation Radio. We'll catch you next week.